Hello and welcome to your Wednesday evening weirding session. I am your host, C. Savory, creator of Fractal Praxis. I wear black today because I am grieving for the collective disillusionment underway. Being disabused of our illusions is never pretty. It is galling. Being stripped of illusions about the myth of a benefactor state, the motives of the people currently seizing power. When these illusions die, parts of us die along with them, the parts identified with these as truth. While incompetent, greedy supremacists in right-wing populist garb raid and pillage the government we once meaningfully shaped and shared, and the left cows in blame, shame, and self-pitying collapse, there is a vacuum of power that the people ought to see no other choice but to fulfill. And I know how I'd like us to fulfill it. To claim back the power that is vested in our lives and in our communities of mutual sustenance, selecting for the technologies and the ideologies that actually serve us, and stepping into true existential ownership of this entire mess, squaring up to entropy and evolution itself, and claiming our capacities as meaning makers, as society shapers, as culture curators, as world makers. Our power to remake what is here in accord with the truth of our lives. However, that is not likely to happen, and certainly not without a new myth. A new myth that is compelling enough to concentrate and amplify our attention through it. A new anchor for our flailing identities. What if the greatest attainment possible in our society was figuring out how to be here well? How to be here on Earth well, with others, other species, beings, and people, and perhaps even AI too. How to select for the most adaptive culture, how to thrive holistically, how to coordinate and cooperate epically for our thriving, how to live as mature civilians as a norm, and not glorify entitled juveniles who act like bullying psychopaths seeking only to destroy through their power as a reflection of the intense, intolerable emptiness inside of them. But instead, what if each one of us strives to become more whole, and our culture warps to expand and expands to enable the full thriving and self-actualization of more of us? Then we would perhaps begin to weave a vibrant, sturdy, resilient fabric of meaning, one that's flexible and alive, but culminating in epic scales of harmony and collaboration not yet witnessed, perhaps in the entire cosmos. And I am not merely invoking this scenario. I am living it, shaping change, touching it now with my own life. It is real. This world to be born through us, prophesied and pre-seen by so many. But let me back up from the brink and seek to situate us so that we can ripen to this imminent threshold crossing with full, lucidity. We are on the brink of serious crises hitting even our privileged doorsteps. We are living in times of the collapse of complex systems. Complex systems includes ecosystems, economic and social order or systems, political systems, and all of these are entangled with each other, especially since no civilization has ever survived living beyond the means of its ecological resource base. We are also living in times of utter information overload. Humans were not evolved to be forced to process as much information as we are now exposed to every day. And in this environment of overwhelm, misinformation has the conditions to thrive through us, the way a disease can infect a whole population that does not have inoculation against it. Misinformation pollutes and makes more toxic our information environments, which further creates barriers to our surviving and thriving at this time. And furthermore, we are in a failure of myth. Certain myths are failing us in ways that are extremely consequential. And we need new myths. We need new meanings for ourselves, both individually and collectively. So where do we find these new myths, these new meanings? Well, here I speak into the breach. My theory? We are doomed now if we do not consciously evolve. If we stay stuck in reacting, we will waste energy. We will undermine ourselves, and we will perish. We need to rise to the occasion from a fully embodied place of responding. Let's stretch time a moment here before another reaction, before another collapse. And let's orient ourselves to a myth that's perhaps more true, that we would at least more like to live into. Let us not choose doom. Let us choose consciously evolving. Let us evolve into a culture mature enough to take care of ourselves and others, of ideally all of us. For we have the latent capacity for exactly this, and to self-organize in just this way, a capacity which is suppressed, in fact, by the state. So let's further endeavor into this new myth. Imagine if the greatest insight possible for humanity was not about how to quote-unquote transcend humanity or the earth, which I would relabel bypass humanity and the earth, leaving behind a disaster on this planet while we go to violently colonize other foreign places. Where have we heard that before? What if, instead, the greatest insight possible for society involves how to be here well, how to be responsible and thriving and in reciprocal mutualism with our kin and our kind, all other beings? We need a rite of passage, mirroring the initiation rites found in many indigenous cultures, in which a child transitions to the formal role in that culture of an adult. We need that type of initiation at the scale of humanity and culture. Humankind would elect to take responsibility for the mess that it and its kin has created, and would coordinate and sense-make to an unprecedented degree with the assistance of connective technology, But remember, we can't do it on their corporate platforms by design. We have to develop ourselves to be able to handle both the connectedness with nature that will come after years and generations of trauma, dissociation, and suppression. And we need to equip ourselves to handle the responsibilities of awareness of all of this suffering and the conscious actions stemming from that awareness. How do we develop ourselves into these incredibly capable, expansive beings? There are these pillars that I identify, which show up extensively in my work of fractal praxis, and I have entire coursework to roll out in the future under these pillars. The first pillar is agency. The second is meaning. And the third, and these are actually in no particular order, I realize, the third is sync. SYNCH, abbreviated for synchronization, which is about the ability to line up and coordinate your whole self and all of its parts. So your body with your mind, your body-mind with your spirit, your body-mind-spirit with the land and with your place in relationships with all kinds of beings. So I will unpack each of these more and more, but first, the initiation to become an existential adult in these times. The initiation will cause you to develop your own sovereignty, i.e. agency. It will induce you to lean more into your intuition and connection with the whole to survive the ordeal, i.e. sync. But only because your entire experience through the ordeal is provided meaning. Without meaning, the ordeal would be torture. With meaning, the ordeal is developmental. And I wish to nod to my teacher, Deacon Rodda, who I'm paraphrasing there. Friends, there is no escape from our responsibilities. Continuing to defer them is our doom sooner or later. Embracing our responsibilities will completely revolutionize who and what we are. And this is what we must do. Space. In these times of great breakdown and breakthrough, we need to make enough time and space, allowing for reflection and allowing our different parts to get reorganized in a more sustainable, elegant way in these times. That is, we need to allow ourselves to step closer to our true selves. And these breakthrough processes require space. If you need to, divest your energy from some other areas and reallocate it to submitting to this process of becoming reorganized by the truth. And we can't only make space, of course. We also have to attune to what kinds of skillful actions are called for. Of course, we would feel an urgent need to do something about this horrible moment. But if you're looking for something especially empowering to do in this type of a time, a change up in your investments of energy, attention, and even self-identity, then I would advise divest your attention from the corporate-controlled mainstream narratives and invest your attention into the fringes. And I am not talking about the fringe as in the underdeveloped, hyper-chauvinist, racist, stupid fringe of this toxic overstory culture that has now penetrated mainstream culture so certain individuals can consolidate their power. Rather, I mean fringe in the sense of fully divested and existing on the fringes from mainstream culture. The people who are ignored by this system and who survive on the edges of this system, cultivating great interdependence, great wisdom, great intuition, and great personal and shared power. I'm speaking of the actual leaders among us, who are actually resilient to the trappings of capitalism because they are not persuaded by its logic. The actual heritage makers, the actual legacy keepers, the actual wisdom keepers, the actual creative, compassionate, wise organizers among us. We should empower them with our attention and our resources in this time, elders and radicals alike. We should nurture them with our interest and engagement. Let divesting from this old myth and this crap system go hand in hand with investing in actual community leaders, in people who hold the wisdom of how and that we must rise together or not at all. Can you imagine living in a paradigm in which wealth is not hoarded because there is no logical or mythological justification for that? Can you imagine living in a paradigm modeled on the brilliance of ecological systems for the distribution of resources, knowledge, power, and access? Imagine a culture that curated paradigms of distributed effective decision-making structures, distributed effective communities, self-governance, and self-organization, where you genuinely felt better seen, more respected, and that your needs and your gifts to give are fully brought out by your environment. Some of us have been dedicating our whole lives to this question of how to lead from beneath, how to cooperate effectively for our mutual attainment, how to shepherd from behind rather than dominate from above, how to be a servant leader that brings out the prismatic justice and joy implicit in our diverse communities, weaving that magic into a symphonic culture of mutual development and thriving. Self-determination, I'm saying. A servant leader empowers others as an extension of their power. I will say it again. A servant leader empowers others as an expression of their power. Take the action of reinvesting your attention and resources into these folks now. Now remember, death and life are not the binary we are accustomed to thinking of them as. They are entangled, feeding on one another. If you can believe it, even this very moment of chaos and obvious collapse could just be one perspective on a phenomenon that is simultaneously about your reclamation and rebirth into a more whole self, more whole communities, more integration of everything that there is to attend to, that is ours to attend to, that our capacity stretches to respond to this beautiful, complex world in kind. This is the calling together and the naming, the invoking, the orating of a culture capable of rich complexity and life-changing interconnection, being the net to catch us, to gather us in a sacred web of care. And like the shape of a mycelial mat, these threads will scab over the wound, even encompassing the vast, horrific legacy oppression that continues to manifest in cycling trauma. The wound would be covered by this net. Through reweaving us together in kinship and in kind, the magic of healing transpires, and the growth of our true selves, supported by this new culture, will be exponential. So go find the leaders who know how to network and to make the nets work. Go. Seek them. Seek to become them. Do not thwart your true purpose and identity now. It is a fractal in this moment of crisis and opportunity. In closing, I will offer a song which I led a spontaneous group ritual with at Yellow Barn's Sovereignty Summit, September of this past year. There's a statement in this song, and I invite you to read between the lines and to really feel into what it is telling. Follow the women, follow their beauty, follow the women, follow their beauty, follow the women, they know what time it is, follow the women, time for something to die, follow the women, time for something to live. Follow the women, they know what time it is. Follow the women, they know what time it is. Follow the women, they know what time it is. Follow the women, follow their beauty, follow the women, follow their wisdom, follow the women, they know what time it is. Follow, time for something to die. Follow the women, follow the women, follow the women, follow the women. In closing, thank you for witnessing and weaving with me. Now is the time in the ritual when we pass the proverbial basket. If you wish to support the work of Fractal Praxis, please make a donation using the link in the description below, or consider becoming a Fractal Praxis member. Merry meet and merry part, and merry meet again.